Howdy everyone, and welcome back to The More You Grow. I want to apologize, it's been a little bit since I made a video. I took some time off from YouTube to spend some time with my family this summer. I wanted to refocus what I wanted to do on the channel, what I want to share with you guys, coming up with a few projects I've got in the works, so I'm really excited to be back and to share those with y'all. I want to start out again with one of my favorite things to do this time of year is to start a fall garden. So I'm here today at the school garden. For those who don't know, I'm a high school plant and soil science teacher. Love teaching kids about getting outdoors, getting their hands dirty, and learning how to provide for themselves. And I want to talk to y'all today about the steps I go through when planning a fall garden and the stuff that I teach my students to where they can also plan a successful fall garden. So let's get back here in the garden and let's go check it out. Fall is a great time of year to begin a garden. You get a little bit more advantage in that the weather will start to get more mellow as time goes on. You get better weather. You don't have as many of the crazy intense heat spells. You don't have as many of the pests, it seems to me. And there's just a lot of advantages to it. Back here we've started some fall cut flowers. I also teach floral design now, so we've planted out some fall cut flowers that we'll hopefully make before the end of the year. But let's get into the very first thing we need to talk about is preparing your seed beds to get ready for your fall garden. The first place to start in your garden is to start with a blank slate. That means clearing out any of the excess junk, dead plants, weeds, all that good stuff. In any good garden, there are ways to prevent those weeds, but even the best gardens get weeds in them. But this is your time to start with a blank slate, a fresh start. And there's lots of tools you can use to do that. I like this one a lot when I've got kind of bigger bunch grasses that come up. This is what I call, it's a weeding hoe, but I like this one because it's got this forked end, and then it's got the regular garden hoe on the other side. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my weeding hoe here with the fork on the back. Let me show you how this works. So you see you got a grass here. It's a pretty good size. Getting this thing out by hand would not be fun. But what you do here is you get kind of behind it, kind of where the center of it would be. Give it a good whack into the ground and give it a few good pulls, and look at that. Whole thing comes out. Shake off that soil. You don't want to lose any of that good soil. If you got raised beds or in your garden, you don't want to lose that. Look how easy that was. You just fork in behind it and it takes the whole thing up. Another go-to tool that any good garden needs. If you don't have one of these, you need to go down to your hardware store and get one. This is a stirrup hoe or a hula hoe. You may have seen this and you're like, what in the world do I do with that? What I love about this is great for when you've got tons of little weeds in between rows, in between plants, those little ones that come up, and you don't want to just go pick them all out hand by hand, just one at a time. This is great because what it does is you'll press down on the soil, and this will sink into the ground. And as it sinks in, it cuts those little roots right underneath. What you do here is you just push this down into the soil, and all these little weeds that are just meticulously hard to pick up, you just cut them out. It just cuts the roots right out from underneath it and makes your life super easy. And then you just gather them all up, and there you go. Another crucial part of preparing your fall garden is not only what you take out of it, like the weeds, but what you put back into it. Now is the time to be adding back into your soil with things like compost, or if you have any amendments like manure tea or worm castings, things like that. This is a great time to start adding back into your gardens and to get those nutrients, get those microbes going again. Try to liven that soil up where it's ready for those new plants to go in. So there's a couple ways you can go about it. You can make your own compost if you're really industrious that way. I will tell you, if you've got a big enough garden, it's going to take a lot of compost. So with that being said, what I prefer to do is invest back into my garden. Though it's an expense, most people say it costs money, but I see it as investing into my garden. I will buy compost from reputable sources, places I know that are going to make good quality compost. But we have a place here pretty close to where we live that makes big, like, windrows of compost, and it's really great stuff. And we will buy it by the cubic yard, and it's only like $20 a cubic yard. So really, for what you're getting, it's not that much. If you bought compost or any kind of soil in the bags, it's $4 or $5 sometimes for maybe a 30-40 pound bag, when I can get a 3-foot by 3-foot pile for $20. Buy it in bulk. Buy it from people that are making it and selling it and just doing a good quality product. So make sure you invest back into your garden. Something you need to be doing while you prepare your garden is you need to plan your garden. It's always good to know what you're doing before you do it, and you don't want to waste time that you could be planning on trying to figure out where you want to put stuff. The thing I usually recommend is to just put it on paper. Draw out your garden, section it off, and you can say where you want to plant things. You can organize your garden on paper. There are other programs out there. I use one called Garden Planner. I'll leave the link down below for that. This isn't sponsored by them or anything. I just really like the product they have. It's an online garden planner that you can make everything down to the square foot, and it makes it a really great visual, and I love that product a lot. I use it probably more than anything. One of the biggest things I think people forget to do when they plan out any garden that usually comes around to bite them in the rear end later is they don't leave space. So when you plan out your garden, make sure you leave space. What I mean by that is, don't fill your garden up all the way at the very beginning, because there will be plants that will grow better later on, and if you fill it all at the beginning, you won't have space for those plants later on. So for an example, you can plant a fall crop of things like zucchinis and squash and things like that, and they're a really big plant that take up a lot of space. Later on in the season, you can plant things like turnips, and you can plant beets, things like that. But if you take up all your space with your squash at the beginning, where are you going to put all those later crops that will come later on? So make sure when you make your plan on paper, also plan out your timing of when you're going to put things in. So that way you leave space later on for the later crops, and that way you don't get one big harvest all at one time and then it's all done. You want to try to get as much variety and as much time out of your garden as possible. So make sure you leave space for the later crops in your garden. Another crucial step in planning your fall garden is to plan backwards, which means know how much time you have in your garden to get your crops. Some of our crops can go past the frost dates, our first average frost dates, and they can handle some of those cold temperatures. We don't have to worry about them as much. What we have to worry about is the ones that are frost sensitive, things like squashes and zucchini, things that are warm season plants. They have a certain amount of days they need to start producing fruit. And if you don't have that many days until your average frost date, you might want to consider devoting more of your time and energy into those crops that can grow later in the year. It's all about when you're starting. So if you're starting right now, you're getting a little bit low on time to do some of those warm season crops like squash and zucchini. But if you're just now getting started, you have plenty of time to do other things. I'm not saying you can't try them, you can give it a shot. You just may not get the results that you want. But there are some crops out there like turnips and beets, radishes, peas, things that can grow with a little bit of cold weather. You might want to devote more of your time over into those things. And next year, make sure you start your garden early enough to where you can get in all those plants that you really want to grow. If you start in July, you can even grow some of the longer maturing winter squashes like butternut squashes, acorn squashes, and you can even grow pumpkins and give those around Halloween time. You just have to make sure you plan to where you start early enough to plant what you want and give it enough time to mature in your garden. There you have it, guys. That's the steps I have when I plan out a fall garden, when I teach my students on how to plan a fall garden. If you have any other questions on that, you can always leave those down in the comments. If you'd like for me to make a video on the plants that I recommend for growing in a fall garden, that's a whole video in itself, and I would love to talk about those. So if you want to see that video, leave it down in the comments as well. Got a lot of things planned on the channels, guys. I have a whole list of things I'm going to make videos of, and I'm really excited to be back into the swing of things. If you want to see more of what's happening over at the farm, make sure you go check out our farm channel, King Cross Farms. Morgan makes a lot of great videos on the animals we've got on the farm. We're going to start trying to make a few over there on some of the animals we've got going on and some of the new additions we have, so that'll be pretty exciting. But if you like this video, guys, hit that like button, and if you want to get notifications of when all these new videos are going to come out, be sure to hit that bell icon. And if there's any other videos you'd like me to make or any suggestions you have, leave those in the comments as well. But until next time, guys, I hope you'll join me right here on The More You Grow.